Welcome to Amazing Indiana Music Stories.
Great. Well, I'll start. Cyn here, and I was really involved in theater and music in high school and headed to Indiana. I was going to be a theater major, and I met Chrissie Dickinson, who ended up being the guitarist and songwriter in Sally's Dream. And my life took a different turn. We just jumped into the punk music scene of the 1980s, and that's kind of how I got my start.
Awesome.
Yes. Well, always a huge music fan. I never played the drums until a little bit later than some people. I was in my early 20s and just was like in a living room band with a couple of friends. And then I was in a band called Go Dog Go. And Cindy and Chris came looking for me when that band broke up. So I was very much a novice, but it was just so much fun to learn while playing with these women and creating songs together. And it became everything. That was the whole focus of life.
I'm Jenny. I remember when I was 6, I got my grandfather's transistor radio, and it was always just glued to my ear. And I really just loved music from the time I was very young. I was in musical theater in high school. Same thing in college when we had musicals, which I don't think we had a lot, but whatever. I digress. And I cast Cindy in a play, and then we became friends, and they asked me to join the band.
Now, before we got to Sally's Dream, there were other bands. You mentioned Go Dog Go. There was also the Altered Boys, right?
Yes, that was Chrissie and my first band
Okay.
with Angie Skidmore. Janice Hoyt played in that band with us for a while. And then we moved on into playing with some other people in the local scene and formed a group called Glass Factory. That lasted, I think, about a year. And then we got these two and started Sally's Dream in about 1982.
Okay, awesome. Each of you, what was the first record you remember buying or receiving?
Hot
Just that,
Rock.
just for fun.
The Rolling Stones Hot Rocks. And I've forever been a Stones fan.
Carole King Tapestry.
Ooh, yeah.
I remember I bought my brother a 45 of Cool Jerk for his birthday. And I was so cool because he thought that was so cool. But the first album I bought was the Bee Gees, Massachusetts.
Whoa.
All great choices. My first album that I bought was the Mamas and Papas, the one with California. Yeah. So, yeah. So 1982, Sally's Dream. I was sort of involved in this whole scene kind of around the same time, and I left, and then I came back and I played with Janice. You guys kind of were post Dancing Cigarettes, pre Arson Garden. Who were your influences in Bloomington, and who were your influences outside of Bloomington?
Well, one thing, there weren't a ton of bands back then. I mean, things really exploded, I think, more in the 90s. There wasn't a lot of other bands. I mean, we all loved the Dancing Cigarettes, and even though our music was very different, they were sort of a model of just being cool and getting things done. But on the broader scale, it was just, for me, it was everything I'd always loved in music. I don't know. I'm not sure how to answer that.
Well, we were listening to so much that was coming down the tracks at us at that time. Really got into punk music, new wave music. As things developed through MTV, we were just exposed to so many really incredible and strange and wonderful bands. And locally, yes, as Emily said, the Dancing Cigarettes were inspirational. Everybody in that scene was inspirational to us because we were all just kids doing it. As Emily said, we were learning as we were going on. I'd never picked up a bass until Chrissie and I started playing together because it was necessity. She played guitar, I'd play bass. We had Angie banging on some drums that she kind of put together. And we just all learned together and fell in love with the music of the time.
I think I came from I really loved pop music. So I think I came from a little bit different space than the two of you guys did. I know, Emily, you like Americana and stuff, and not really my thing, but hey, it's all good. Um, and the Bloomington scene, yeah, I think I'm just going to go with what they've said. It was just, we
So
all hung out together and learned from each other.
I would add one thing. It was bands like REM, of course, was another very inspirational band. And to see their rise from playing at tiny clubs to bigger venues, and the Replacements, and then all the women that were coming along, Patti Smith, Susie Sue. We were really inspired by a lot of women who were rocking hard, throwing muses, really loved them. So it's kind of, yeah.
Romeo Void was another great inspirational band to us, as well as X. And these were bands that were coming to Bloomington at the time, playing at Second Story or at Jake's nightclub. And we were so fortunate through working really hard and getting better. And that got recognized by people like Lee Williams and David Miller. I'm sorry, David Miller. Two wonderful guys that were really formative in the scene and bringing groups to Bloomington that probably wouldn't have come through town.
And we're super supportive of us.
Yeah. And we got a lot of opening dates at Jake's and Second Story, as I said. One of them was opening up for Romeo Void. And Deborah Ayal, and those guys were just really kind and inspirational to us at the time.
you opened for a lot of bands. You played with a lot of local bands, a lot of good ones. Bloomington's always been blessed with good musical talent. What's a special memory that you might have of, either playing at Second Story or playing with a bigger band, or just something that happened that was like, I'll never forget this?
Wow, there are so
It
many.
could be embarrassing.
Well, speaking of Romeo Void, it was at Jake's nightclub in October, I think, of '84, and I broke a bass string in our first song. And we finished the song. We just sort of improvised our way through it, but we thought, oh my God, we have to replace a bass string. And we're in the opening part of our set. And there was a little bit of a panic and some joking on stage as we tried to figure out what we were going to do. And Frank, who was the bass player of Romeo Void, came running up on stage with his bass and threw it over my shoulders and saved the day. And we just went straight into the next song and just rocked through to the rest of the set. So that was a really incredible memory. Others are seeing REM for the first time. We did not open for them at Second Story, but they were really young in their career. I think they had Radio Free Europe out, and they just were so inspirational and amazing to watch. And as Emily said, to see their rise from that point. But nobody in the club knew who they were, but we were all pressed to the stage and knew that it was something special.
I think 10,000 Maniacs also, we opened for them and got to make dinner for them, and it was a lot of fun hanging out. And afterwards, I hung out with the piano player for a long time, just trading riffs, and that was really special.
And there were a lot of great local bands, the Special Guests, the Rosebloods, Arson Garden. There are countless others that, we were growing up together in that scene. And so being a part of that Second Story world, we were there almost every weekend when we weren't on the road.
At the time, my recollection was that the scene was actually fairly small and marginalized. This changed fairly quickly. But didn't it seem to you, as it did to me, that anything, we were all young, anything seemed possible?
Yes.
Absolutely.
It was, and I don't want to dominate this interview in any way, but it just seemed like, well, REM did it, the B-52s did it, maybe we could do it too. And most of us didn't get that far, but there was there was much less competition at the time than there is now. I read a statistic recently that more music is released every day this year than was released in 1980, the whole year.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the technology is totally different, and we were doing it ourselves, just making our own posters, calling clubs, walking into clubs, asking for dates.
Making our own press kits,
Yep, our own tapes, of course, cassette tapes.
staying up all night, just copy, copy, copy.
And then we were fortunate to do the Live from Bloomington albums for a couple years, and we started to do some recording at Homegrown Studios. And that was a whole brave new world, and we just grew a lot doing that recording as well.
Did you tour regionally at all? Play outside of Bloomington much?
Yeah, we went to Cincinnati a few times, and then we took a road trip down kind of to Atlanta and back and had gigs that way, like a gig every night. So
That was hard to do, wasn't it?
excuse me?
It was hard to do that back then.
It was a lot harder. We played at Tooligans in Louisville and
The Bottom Line in
We
Lexington.
played in Chicago and Champaign-Urbana, or was that Champaign-Urbana?
And Carbondale, Illinois, pretty much regionally and into the South a little bit. Yeah, it was hard. We were first doing all our own booking, and then we did get hooked up at one point. Jake's nightclub had a booking arm called, I think, GMA or JMA, and they helped us with some of that booking. But we had some gigs that were, 4 nights of shows at one club, and we got put up at a hotel with a swimming pool, and we had 2 motel rooms instead of 1 to all shack up in. And so it was really exciting being on the road. We had an old step van we called Stella, and she was pretty reliable. And with a triptych or a map, we just, we went everywhere. Of course, this was before GPS, so we just kind of had to find our way. But we met some great people on the road and just had the times of our lives.
There were other times where the club would be like, yeah, we'll find someone to put you up, and we'd be sleeping on someone's dirty shag carpet.
Yes,
It
that
was
happened.
a thing.
We'd
So
also,
you ended up, I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't want
we'd
to cut
also meet people on the road that would welcome us into their homes and hearts, and cook us dinner and bring us home and give us places to stay. It was all sort of pieced together.
And like the Dancing Cigarettes and so many other bands of the time, you didn't really have any contemporaneous releases other than what was on the Bloomington samplers and the cassette. Did you have trouble finding anybody to put your records out?
We had some success as far as some compilation work. We did, we were on a cassette of all female bands that was coming out of Canada. We put out our own cassette, which was called Midnight Matinee, which we'd, sell on the road. We did send out a lot of packages, a lot of press kits, and we never kind of broke through to that level. We got some nice rejections that would say, keep trying. But yeah, we didn't get picked up by any sort of big label at the time. We were just doing our own thing.
maybe our most famous rejection was from Alex Cox. He was just starting to work on a movie about Nancy Spungen and Sid Vicious. And we had a song called October 12th, which was about Nancy Spungen. And he was encouraging, but we wanted our song in his movie, but that didn't happen. But we saved the letter he wrote back to us.
Well, if I recall correctly, it was a difficult time for Bloomington bands because there had been barbecue records, which basically floated the scene from the mid 70s to maybe the late 70s. And then Gulcher came along and sort of adopted the punk scene. And since they kind of started it with the Gizmos and then they left, and there really wasn't a record label around Bloomington in the early 80s that I can remember.
Yeah.
Made it tough.
We felt a little bit lost in the heartlands after a while, to try to break through to being more widely recognized. And that's when we contemplated where we would move. And we ended up resettling in Boston for a few years. But we had contemplated LA or New York. We didn't want to move to Chicago because some of us had already lived there and we played there already quite a bit. But even after we left, Bloomington had a special place in our hearts, and we still kind of consider it home.
Having already done what you did, moved to Boston when I moved with Amoebas and Chaos, which didn't work out too well. Tell me about what it was like for a band from Bloomington to move to the big city of Boston, where there were thousands of bands and a lot of difficult clubs to deal with. How did you navigate that? And how did you pick Boston in the first place?
I think we didn't want to go to LA, and we thought New York was just going to be too big and intimidating and that we would have better luck in Boston. That's why we went there. It was not easy. You had to print your own tickets, I think, and get people to come in for $3, and you got played for the door. But we did have a lot of gigs, so I think we were pretty fortunate in that way. We played quite a bit in Boston.
We built up our audience, and also Amoebas and Chaos and the Jetsons having moved to Boston before we did. We had some folks that we knew there, so that was part of the deciding factor as well. But yeah, we started out slowly. We just hit it. We hit every club. We went to see other bands. We got to know the people that were booking. We just kept at it. And then soon we were playing TT the Bears and Johnny D's and the Rat.
That's
Yeah, Chet's was our first gig in Boston. But it was different because Bloomington had been such a close-knit community of artists. And like you say, there were so many bands in Boston, and it was just a matter of kind of getting to know them and supporting them, and then making friends with them.
Yeah, like, for the club owner to see you coming in to see other bands, just being part of the scene. And it was harder to get that second gig. Like, we do really well. Like, okay, let's book our next one. And it was a little bit easier once we played there once, but there was definitely a lot more competition. Like, can we book another gig? Well, hold on, get back to me in a month or two. Like, we're not going to have you back to our club within, that short a time frame, because there's so many other bands.
One of my memories of our naive hopes of going to Boston and gelling, we really weren't ready. The only reason Amoebas and Chaos moved there is because Rich Lamphere and Lynn Shipley wanted to move there. And I decided to go too, just for the adventure. And Lynn got a tendonitis thing where she couldn't play bass, so we were really scrambling. But one of the things I remember most about the reality of Boston was picking up the Boston Phoenix's annual music issue and seeing that there really were thousands of bands in all genres. And it was, Bloomington was maybe 30 or 40 bands, maybe if you counted every band in Bloomington. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, we really are a small fish in a very big pond. So I give you a lot of props for hacking through that. Where it didn't work out for the Jetsons, it didn't work out for Amoebas and Chaos, it didn't work out for the Gizmos when they moved to New York or Hoboken. It's a tough thing to do. So I think it says a lot about your fortitude as a band and your persistence.
Well, also at the time, we all had to get full-time jobs. And Emily was in school and working, and the rest of us jumped into that and were navigating public transportation for the first time. We'd walked everywhere in Bloomington. It was such a small community and all the different neighborhoods. And we had to get a recording space, which was an old warehouse and was pretty creepy and scary. And the only times we could perform or to rehearse were 3 nights a week from like 9 to 11 p.m. So yeah, there was a lot of work going into making ourselves a part of that scene and being able to get those gigs.
Well, we also made contacts that way too. We shared a space with another band who one of the guys played violin with us on a few songs. He's on the recordings. Another guy from Hunting Sleeve played saxophone on one of our songs. So it was creepy, yes, but it was good also.
It was like these rehearsal spaces where you go downstairs and there were just all these doors, all these rooms and hallways and just filled with bands. And that was only one of those rehearsal spaces. There were a couple more, where there were 50 bands in there all doing their thing.
And it was right by Fenway Park, so it was not in an easy to get to place. Or I remember it being weird to get there.
Yeah, down around the park. Because in Bloomington, we all lived and worked within a 4 or 5 block area for the most part. We practiced here, down the street was Second Story. Our jobs were in the neighborhood. It was much easier.
I'll tell you a funny story about our practice space in Boston. We shared with some other bands. We got hooked up with those Propeller people, and they didn't really like us too much, but they kind of allowed us into their outer circle, if you will. And we ended up sharing a space with these guys from People in Stores. I don't know if you remember that band. They might not have been going when you were there, but it didn't have any heat. And at some point, somebody actually tried to tunnel into our space from the next space over to steal equipment. I don't remember the details, but I remember that like, wow, you really are in the big city. Wake up call.
And those spaces.
So speaking of that.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
it's just like those spaces were, they all had smoke detectors, but of course the guitar players had all taken those 9-volt batteries out of the smoke detectors for their guitar stomp boxes. I was like, don't think about it.
So what was the peak experience in Boston?
Well, for me, probably playing the Rathskeller. The Rat was a big deal. It's, the granddaddy of all Boston rock clubs. And so many acts had played there, from the Cars till Tuesday, the Police. Like we felt like we were in the big league. We'd finally kind of come to a point. At that time too, we were doing a lot of recording there, and that was going really well. So we were really feeling like we were living the life of musicians on their way.
Yeah, that first gig at TT the Bears was great because we had to give the tickets out to get $1 off at the door. And we brought in like 70 tickets, which was really unusual because we were party girls. We were out meeting people and like, we're great. Here, take a ticket, come see us play. So that was really exciting for our first gig there that we did pretty well. And I think we impressed the club. So I like that in the Middle East upstairs. Downstairs might not have been opened yet, but Middle East upstairs was also a hot spot. So you definitely wanted to play at these places that were where everybody was going. And that went well too. That was fun.
Yeah, we had that experience too. If you want to play, here's 50 tickets. They're it's $50 for 50 tickets, and and we didn't know a soul. We just moved there. We didn't know anybody. We might have been able to bring in 5 or 10 people. So my gosh, if you were able to bring in 70 people.
We made $70. You got paid for those tickets, and that was your gate.
Yeah.
So a lot of recording. Any nibbles from record labels while you were doing the recording?
I don't think we really shopped it around much.
No, I think we were waiting to have the product, really.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long were you active in Boston, and from what years?
87 until about 90. Jenny moved to New York. Chrissie and I moved back to Chicago, and Emily stayed in Boston and continued to play music there.
Okay. And Sally's Dream, any reunions after that?
One that was great, 'cause I moved back to to Bloomington in '05 or '06, and Second Story was doing a reunion. So, because I had a house in the country and a music room, it was great because we did like we're doing now a weekend together. They would come to my house and we did that show, and we did a few old songs, but it had been a long time, and so we wrote some new songs, which was really fun because we like relived that creative experience by preparing for that show.
And I would say in the probably early 2000s, we got together, and every few years we would get together. It turns out now we have a reunion every year, just to be together to, share our musical history and sisterhood. And we, started working on this project to revisit Sally's Dreams music and to finally release that album many years later.
Tell us about the plan for that.
So we started culling everything we could find, posters, and like we do have some TT the Bears tickets, anything we could find, old photos. It all got digitized, and we started going through things, but it really started at Chrissie's memorial. After Chrissy passed, excuse me, we got together to have a memorial for her. And someone had I think Emily on her computer had some of the songs saved. And we listened to them then and we were like, hey, this stuff holds up. This is good. We should do something with it. And so through all of that, through getting all the material together, finding old cassette tapes that we had digitized, having it remastered, we just were like, we got to do this. And so we've really been working on it.
And the project is dedicated to Chrissy's memory. Sadly, in 2022, she passed away from some heart issues. And as Jenny mentioned, when we got together to have a memorial service at Emily's house, which was just an incredible community event, that's when we started to revisit this music and decide to finally put out the album.
And when can we look forward to this surfacing? I know these things always take longer than you think they're going to, but for people who are looking forward to hearing it, and many times for the first time, when can we hope to see it?
Well, we've done all this background work. While we were together this weekend, we created our Bandcamp page and started getting it all ready to launch. And we're still finalizing our CD packaging design. And so that's about ready to get sent off. So we don't have exact dates, but we're moving. There's no more anything to delay us. And so it might be the end of the year, might be in the fall. It's the middle of August. So it just, how long does things take?
It's coming soon.
Yes. Yeah, definitely end of the year, early next year.
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of excitement about this.
Well, we're working the plan. Cindy worked up our master, marketing plan with Facebook page, and there was
YouTube.
some video, like Jim Mannion did some video for us at Second Story. So Cindy had cut those up into individual songs. So we have a whole bunch of stuff that once we launch the CD, we can throw out teasers and more stuff. And there are an additional few songs that we could also post up later as individual downloads.
And originally we had kind of thought of it as a project for our friends and the people that we knew who supported us in Bloomington and would always come out and dance at our shows, and that we've kept in touch with. But there's such an interest now in 80s music and that era that we just thought, well, yeah, let's go ahead and release these crazy videos from live shows, and let's go ahead and tell our stories and put up our music and see what people think.
Well, I can't wait to hear it because I've got the cassette and one track that was on that cassette sampler, and that's about maybe one of the Bloomington albums, but I'm looking forward to hearing all the stuff you did afterwards. especially. I realize that doing a reunion show without Chrissie would not be the same. Have you contemplated doing any live performing?
People have brought it up before. At this point, you know, Chrissie was such a heart of our band. We really haven't thought that we could do it without her. Not to say we might not jam together for fun in some sort of different fashion, but as far as the Sally's dream, that's something we have in our hearts and memories, I think.
So you are all, I think, am I correct in this assumption that you are all still actively doing something musically?
Well, I played in a lot of bands in Boston. I met this guy, Pete Weiss, who also had a recording studio. So that was fun, a little bit more recording than I'd done before with him and various other bands. Then I moved back to Bloomington and I played some. Dixie Fried Diablo was an instrumental band. That was really fun. But then about the time of COVID, like things were changing and I didn't play. So about that time, I stepped back. Let these other people do it. I did it for a long time and I loved it, but I just feel like, oh, you know, I'm really proud of everything I'm done. I'm not sure I'll play anymore.
I actually am on the other side now. I book talent and musical acts at a really wonderful music venue here in Franklin, Tennessee, where I live. And it's been fascinating being on the other side. And I think the thing I love most about it is cultivating this young talent and helping nurture them as they rise. And it's all different kinds of music. You know, people think of Nashville as being just country, but in addition to country artists, there's phenomenal alternative music bands, rock bands, jazz bands. So we do it all. And so that's kind of how I'm still involved in music.
And I'm not. I played a little bit when I first moved to New York, but I've my job is all encompassing and I just really have no free time. I am looking forward to retirement. I'm gonna start picking up the bass and the keyboards again and just, you know, for myself, and we'll see if anything happens. I doubt it, but you know, whatever, I'm open.
So that transitions us kind of to present day. And Cynthia, you're more involved in the music industry. Emily, you're involved in the radio side of things. What's your take on today's music and today's musical opportunities for young people? What advice would you give them, and what are you observing out there?
Well, I have to say a word about WFHB, which is amazing. So when that started in 93, went on the air, there was a lot more opportunities with a local live show every week and really supports local music a lot. So it's just get out there and do the work. Don't be, go on local live and do that show for the Bloomington bands. It's a great opportunity. And there are so many bands, and there's a really mutually supportive culture in Bloomington of all these people playing music in these nice venues. But advice for young upcoming bands is just believe in yourself and just do it.
Yeah. I have a younger friend who, I mean, younger, she's 40, but she's still younger, who recently joined a band. And I said, have fun. We always had fun. That's the most important thing. And the audience will get it. If you're having fun, the audience is going to have fun too. That's the most important advice, I think, ever.
I think for me, I advise people to find their own voice, find their own sound. I'm particularly interested in songwriters, and get out there and work hard and collaborate with other people, do co-writes, be involved and supportive of the scene, kind of the experience we had in Bloomington, because being around that culture, you learn so much from other performers. and you make connections and friendships that'll last a lifetime.
And take that gig. You can practice in your basement or living room for 10 years, but you got to get out there and do those gigs.
That's right.
Is there anything that we haven't covered that you think is something you'd like to talk about? Maybe a story you remember, or an anecdote, or a memory?
Look, to kind of reiterate, like what was our favorite memories? To me, it's that whole scene at Second Story. I mean, that's where it was. We would go there. Never heard of a band coming into town. We would go there. It was just really great, nurturing environment, and just so much fun.
And I love our time on the road. I mean, we would pile into this step van and just be so excited to bring our music to the world. And we just had incredible adventures doing it. It wasn't easy being an all-female band on the road. It was the boys' club back then. We would walk into a club sometimes and the sound people would, snicker, like, here comes the chick band. But once they heard us play and they saw that we were passionate about it, they'd get on our train.
I'm just going to defer to them again. It was just a great experience all around.
Well, Second Story was the focal point. There were other places to play, not many, but Second Story really was the focal point of Bloomington, from the time I went there in 1980 until, gosh, not all that long ago, maybe 10 years ago. And now there's a lot of places to play in Bloomington. Just like in Indianapolis, there's 50, 100 places to play. You can go see music here every night of the week nearby your house. It's so weird. It used to be that you would try to figure out if somebody was coming and you would try to make sure you went there. And now it's more a matter of you just go out if you want to see music and it's out there, because there are so many bands and so many venues. Just my observation.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have a title for the Sally's Dream album yet?
Breaking Through.
Excellent.
After all these years, breaking through.
I think that pretty much is it. I want to thank you for doing this interview, for being my friends, for doing what you did for Bloomington, and then doing it on a much more difficult scale in Boston. You're the one band I can think of that came out of Indiana that went somewhere and stayed with it, outside of maybe MX80 sound, which of course, changed the world in its own way. But most of the time when you go become an export, it's the odds are stacked against you. So congratulations on jumping through those hoops, and I can't wait to hear the album.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
We can't wait to share it.